Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Jack Talks Bikes, and tonight we're doing a weekly news roundup and I'm filming it from my kitchen, but I have put a motorcycle helmet in, shot, just so you guys know we're talking about bikes still. Anyway, enough of me waffling, let's get straight into it. Tonight's news stories, what are we talking about? First up, we've got Norton and their discontinuation of 3 models and then parking their EV project, the Project Zen. We're going to talk about that briefly and discuss what's going on over at Norton. We're also going to talk about Ducati, as they've just revealed more information on their 2026 Multistrada V4 Rally. We'll look at what's new, how it stacks up against the current model, and how that might fit in with the UK competition. We're also going to talk about Honda's new CB1000F, their kind of throwback neo-retro 80s style classic modern naked sports bike thingy. And then finally, we're going to touch on the new licensing, a license to net zero, a bit of a driving license reform situation that's kind of happening behind closed doors here in the UK, and hopefully going to open some doors to new riders and make it a little bit more accessible for people. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. So let's start straight in with Norton. This is quite big news from this brand. So for those that might not know, Norton is a very old historical British brand, and they make some absolutely stunning, beautiful, high-end bikes. You can kind of see them more as a premium version of Triumph. So Triumph, they've still got premium bikes. I don't want to say Triumph haven't got premium bikes. Triumph do have a premium line of bikes, but they've sort of diluted their offering or made that offering more affordable to the masses by producing lower capacity, smaller CC bikes. At a cheaper cost to allow people to kind of enter that market, and that's how they go about keeping their heads above water. Whereas Norton are more bespoke. They manufacture some beautiful machinery that's more classic, a bit more expensive. I'll say a bit more expensive, considerably more expensive. So yeah, they're more of a premium brand here in the UK. And what they're currently doing at the minute is completely shifting position. And I think it's quite clever and prudent of them, given how difficult the motorcycle industry is at the moment and how dealerships and brands and stuff might be struggling to sell bikes. It's quite prudent of them to pause, reflect on what they're currently doing, invest heavily with their new ownership, and reposition themselves within the market. So Norton is, like I say, making quite a bold move. The press release, it's saying that they've officially ended production of all their flagship petrol models. So that is the end of the Commando 961, the V4 SV sports bike, and the V4 CR Naked. They've stopped manufacturing all their main bikes. The brand has said this is to clear a pathway for an all-new lineup that will be revealed at EICMA 2025. So that is next month, November. So we'll keep an eye out and see what they're going to look like. Meanwhile, Norton has also pulled the plug on its electric superbike project, which has often been referred to as Project Zen in the media. So that's quite big news in itself as well. That could be its own standalone news story, because they secured some like £8.5 million of public funding from the Advanced Propulsion Centre to invest in this superbike project, this all-electric superbike project. So that's like really big news, because what's going to happen to that money and that investment and that time and energy they put into that research and development? So the official reason behind why they've done that is, at this stage, market demand for high-performance electric bikes just isn't strong enough to justify mass production. And I think that's probably true. You ask any enthusiast, any bike rider, anyone who's interested in motorcycles, what their thoughts are on electric bikes, and they're going to say the same to you. Like, they're just not interested. And you've just got to look at the likes of Kawasaki with, what was it, their Z7 hybrid? I think it was Z7 hybrid. That had multiple issues. It's not been a good start for that bike. It's had a couple of recalls out on it for gearbox issues, clunky gear changes, randomly slipping into neutral. Riders aren't happy with it. I actually think at one point there was a cease riding notice put on the bike. So if you already had one, you weren't allowed to ride it. They basically said to you, stop riding it and get it to us as soon as possible, which is quite bad for a manufacturer like Kawasaki, because obviously Japanese brand, you want it to be reliable, and having these issues and stuff with such a new bike, especially given the price of it because of all that tech that was packed into it. So yeah, I think Norton's decision to pause the design of this Project Zen bike is very, very prudent. So on the ground of things, Norton's UK facility in Solihull is already being retooled and equipped to produce the next generation of models. They've invested a significant amount of money into that factory in that centre. I think I did read somewhere that they weren't just seeing it as a factory to produce the bikes. They wanted to see it as an area of technological and engineering brilliance here in the UK. So this isn't just idle talk. This isn't them just saying, we're not doing this anymore, we're going to rein it in and make a smaller number of bikes. They're really taking it serious about how they're going to reposition themselves in the market. So this is a full reset on their infrastructure and the direction. So I'm going to put it over to you guys. Do you think Norton is playing this safe? Do you think they're making the right move to pivot away from electric and look at their brand? Or do you think they're risking kind of upsetting the masses or the people, their customer base, as it were, by ditching the bikes that they currently manufacture? So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think about Norton's decision to move and halt manufacture of all the current line of bikes and invest in a whole new range of bikes. Okay, then moving on, Ducati in the headlines. You know, I'm a big Ducati fanboy. They have just unveiled details of their new 2026 Multistrada V4 Rally. So what is new? How's it stack up? Let's take a quick look at the specs sheets. So the engine is a 1158cc Gran Turismo V4, apparently. 4 valves per cylinder, and a counter-rotating crank. So do with that information as you want. The important bit is we're looking at 170 brake horsepower at 10,750 RPM with a maximum torque figure of 123.8, around 124 Newton meters of torque at 9,000 RPM. So real world usable power. We're not having like a high revving, silly sports engine, which obviously I know we all enjoy occasionally, but on the road, a nice usable amount of power at a decent RPM. Wet weight, it's saying around 240 kilograms, and the seat height is fully adjustable with ranges of between 870 and 890 millimeters, with accessories available for a foam seat, a lower seat height, and a higher seat option. Service intervals are pretty good on the bike as well. Valve clearance checks are now done at 30-something thousand miles, and an oil change is saying every 24 months or 10,000 miles. Personally, I'll just be doing it every year regardless. But yeah, it looks like you can get some long life service intervals on the bike as well. And you also do get the warranty, which is 4 years with Ducati at the minute. On the tech side, what features do Ducati bringing to the table? Well, you get an updated suspension, adaptive Ducati Skyhook Suspension Evo, which apparently gives more flexibility so the rider can change the damping independently of the rider mode. And it adapts to the terrain and style in real time. So that's quite nice. I like that. That's good. Up-to-date modern suspension. That's the sort of tech you get on really high-end cars. So the Rally keeps the radar-based adaptive cruise control as well and the blind spot detection, but they now introduce forward collision warning to alert riders of hazards ahead. I'm not too sure about that one because when you're riding a bike, you tend to be looking forward anyway. So if you haven't seen the hazard developing in front of you, I don't know what the dash beeping and screaming at you, especially when you've got a helmet on, is going to do to bring your attention to the hazard. Like, I don't know. We'll see how that one goes. Is that something you guys would like to see on a bike? I don't know. Trim levels, we've got radar, which is the base level. That includes your, adaptive cruise control, your blind spot recognition, and now includes the forward collision warning system. Adventure travel and radar package, this will add some panniers and heated seats, which is quite nice. Kind of like the thought of that heated seat on the bike. And then you've got the full adventure, which is going to bring you that Acropovic muffler, or Acropovic exhaust, as we say here in the UK, which is a street legal version, so you can guarantee it's going to have a catalytic converter and all sorts of sound deadening equipment in there to make it Euro 5 compliant. And you're also going to have carbon fibre front mudguard. I don't know if that's going to bring any benefit, but yeah, it's nice to have some carbon fibre on the bike. In terms of cost, Ducati Manchester at least, are currently listing the 2026 Multistrada V4 Rally at £25,095. So we're not talking pocket change by any stretch of the imagination. But delivery across Europe can begin as soon as November 2025. In the UK, we've got a number of bikes that sort of operate in this market. Adventure bikes are big business. Sports Tourer is a big business. That kind of tall sit-up and beg style bike is big business here in the UK. So what we've got in competition, you go out there and get yourself a BMW R1250 GS, Triumph Tiger 1200 competition as well. You've got KTM. They do the 1290 Super Adventure. And I guess you could also say Ducati's current Multistrada V4 could be a direct competitor because at that price point and those additional features, what are you getting on top of the current model bike? And how's the release of this bike going to impact the sales figures and the price of the current bike. So I guess that's another one you can throw in there as a competitor. So yeah, I'd be interested to see what you guys think, because at £25,000, that's really sitting in that premium territory of this segment of the market. And it'd be interesting to know if you guys feel like that's an overreach on Ducati's part and they're just playing on their brand and their heritage, or whether you think that given the tech and the spec of that particular model and how good the previous generations have been, that they're actually sitting in the right price point. So let me know in the comments. And yeah, let's move on then. We're looking at the Honda CB1000F now. So this has been big news. If you've been on YouTube and you've been on social media and all your favorite favorite channels and stuff, then have probably already put a message and news article out about this. Honda have unveiled more details about their CB1000F. So what is it? Well, this is Honda's take on the neo-retro throwback naked modern sports bike category. So it's another one that sits in that category of bikes. What we know so far is that they've taken their very well-received CB1000 Hornet platform and completely reimagined a bike around that base. So we've got the same engine, same frame, same swing arm. I believe the same wheels. I might be wrong on that one. But then they've completely retuned that engine and remodeled the bike to give it this kind of like really retro 1980s classic feel and style. And I personally think it looks superb, because I'm really into those sorts of bikes. I love that kind of classic looking bike. And I think Honda have done an incredible job with the styling on this one. I really like it in that silver with the blue stripes. I actually really like it in the black as well. I'm not a big fan of black bikes, but I like it in the black with the red pinstripes. That looks mint as well. I think they've done a really good job with the styling, and on paper, what I'm reading about the bike when it comes to the specs, which we'll come on to, I think Honda have done a tremendous job of entering this segment, because what have we got? We've got the Kawasaki RS line of bikes. They do some retro stuff as well. But then we've got other retro bikes. You've got Suzuki's new, GSX 8T and 8TT. They're trying to do some neo-retro stuff around that. Honda already had like a neo-retro in the CB650R. That was like a modern retro look on that bike. This is leaning more retro mixed with some modern rather than the other way around. Yeah, so there's already kind of a few bikes out there that are working in this segment. And we'll go into the specs and stuff of it now. So let's quickly jump in. So the styling of the bike, as I say, is blocky, it's retro, its design cues hark back to the 1980s Honda CB series. And the bike is based, as I've said, on the successful CB1000 Hornet, taking the platform and the engine with the chassis and frame, and they've just changed up the styling and ergonomics. So we don't know anything about the price at this point, but if we look at the CB1000 Hornet, that's currently available on sale in the UK for £8,999 for the base, and that jumps to £9,999 for the SP version, which comes with the swanky Öhlins rear suspension, fully adjustable front forks, a few other little bits and bobs to make it a bit more trick. I don't suspect we'll see an SP version of the CB1000F. I can't see an SP sitting in a retro style segment of the market. So I think this first bike that comes out is going to be the bike. Let's have a look down there. So let's have a look. The Hornet is praised by the UK. I've not ridden one, but it is praised in the UK reviews as underpriced for what you get. So it's offering a premium near-litre class bike at a much lower class of cost. Peak power, this is what you're actually really interested in. So they've remapped this engine, and now you're getting 122 brake horsepower at 9,000 RPM and 103 Newton meters of torque at 8,000 RPM, which I personally think is really tractable, deliverable, real-world performance. That's the sort of power and power band, should I say, delivery that you're really going to need on the road. You don't need something super high revving, super high screaming 4-cylinder engine. That's good for the track where you can spend a lot of time up in the higher echelons of the rev range. But when you're out on the road and you're coming against traffic, you just need something that's going to be able to pull from low down, not have to knock it down through all the gears to find that power band, to make that overtake and get yourself enjoying the bike out on the road, somewhere like Wales on an A road or a B road. Yeah, I think that's a really smart move for them, kind of bringing the power to 122 brake horsepower, 9,000 RPM, 103 Newton meter torque at 8,000 RPM. That is such a good power curve. Yeah, I like that. That's really good. So from my point of view, what does the CB1000F need to be successful here in the market? So in my opinion, for what it counts for, it needs to be different. It needs to be something that isn't a gimmick. It isn't just reskinning a Hornet in some retro style fairings and tanks and clothing. It needs to actually be meaningful. So with that engine remap, I've got hope that they're onto something with this bike and they're actually, taking it seriously. They're not just taking the same bike and slap some new skin on it and some different suspension tune. They've actually taken the time to think how the power needs to be delivered and how this bike needs to sound and look and feel to the rider. So that's good. It's also going to need good ergonomics. So it needs to have good weight balance, the way you sit on the bike, the way it feels, the way that it actually handles on the road, all needs to be harking back to those 80s styles bikes, but feel safe and comfortable for a new rider who's used to a better suite of electronics, should we say. Because if the bike is too heavy or awkward, then that retro appeal is just going to fall away because people are going to find it too awkward and too horrible to ride. And that's just going to overshadow all that work they've done with the bike. So yeah, they need to make sure the ergonomics and the ergonomics of the bike, fit the styling perfectly as well. And it also needs to be competitively priced. So if we're not going to see an SP version of the bike and we're going to see a reduction in brake horsepower compared to the Hornet and a strip back of some of that like modern tech that the Hornet comes with, then the price needs to reflect that. So hopefully from Honda, we're going to see a really competitively priced bike that sits around the £8,000 new mark, which would be, in my opinion, really good and accessible for riders looking to get onto something retro and classic that they're not going to use every day. And it's just going to be something they can use at weekends, take out in the nice weather, because I can't see this bike being something that people commute on. I can see it being something that they pamper and they look after, and it being a bit of a garage queen. So anyway, what do you guys think? Is this a neo-retro design bike that's just going to be a gimmick like those from other brands? Like I've mentioned, we've got the Yamaha XSR line of bikes. We've got Kawasaki's Z650R line of bikes, RS line of bikes, sorry. So is it going to be a bit of a gimmick? Or do you think they're really onto something with this bike? Are you interested in it? Is it something you're going to hopefully go out and test ride? So finally, the last news story, we're going to look at a license to net zero. So this is a headline that caught my attention, and it's something that's quite interesting to me and should hopefully be interesting to new riders and those hoping to get on two wheels in the future. So for anyone thinking of getting onto bikes, this is hopefully going to help, or at least make the system marginally better and more accessible to more people. So the Motorcycling Industry Association, the MCIA, they've launched a campaign called A License to Net Zero, which argues that the current licensing category for motorcycles, which includes mopeds, bikes, and powered light vehicles apparently, is overly complicated, repetitive, and puts barriers to uptake in the way. And I completely agree with that, because here in the UK, for those that don't know, the licensing system here in England is farcical. So there's different licenses for different age categories. You have to retake the same test to move up between the different licenses when you hit your age category. You have to undertake certain tests before you can do your test. So basically, to start out with, you can do your CBT, which is your compulsory basic training. That's your first step. And once you've passed your CBT, you can go out and ride a 50cc or 125cc bike with no further training. And that license will be limited to 2 years before you have to do your CBT again. To get a full license, you then have to do your theory, which is mad because surely you should do your theory before your CBT. So that's the wrong way round. And then once you've completed your CBT and your theory test, you can then do your module 1 test. And depending on your age, that will get you an A license or an A1 license or an A2 license. A1 licenses are for really young people, and that limits you to a 125 still, but you can take the L plates off. And A2 license is for 25 years old, I think it is. Anyone under 25 years old can do their A2 license, or any rider of an A1 license who's been riding for 2 years can now do an A2 license, but they still have to do their module 1 and their module 2 test again. And then if you're over 25 years old, you can jump straight to your full A license. If that confused you, that's because the system is confusing. The whole thing is a mess. So yeah, this I'm fully welcoming. So they propose a change to the licensing system, and it proposes that someone in government carries out a full review of the licensing process for motorcycles here in the UK. They want a more progressive access route between license tiers. So if you've got an A1, not having to do your Module 1 and Module 2 test again to move on to an A2 license and so forth, just to be able to quickly get you between those license categories. They want to reduce the dead time and duplication of testing. They want to make sure that they're maintaining safety and improving safety in the same time as doing this. So that's a big step. And they argue that by lowering the friction between getting a bike license and making it more accessible to riders, riders will choose 2 wheels or 3 wheels, it says here, or 3 wheels, over going for a car, which is better for the environment because bikes produce less CO2 than their car counterparts. They also reduce the amount of congestion. The more bikes on the road, we have less congestion, and they're a much more greener mode of transport, which is good for the government's plans here in the UK to reach net zero. The Department for Transport actually backed this report as well. They are reported to be saying that they're in discussions with the MCIA over this proposal to try and trigger this review. So that's good news. So within riding communities as well, opinions are mixed. Some people actually hate the concept of changing the bike system. They think the current system is fine. I personally sit on the other side of the fence and think the current bike system is convoluted. It's a mess, and it does need a review to get more people through onto the road and on 2 wheels. I'm not saying it because I want more people out there being unsafe on their bikes. I'm saying it because I want more people out there on the roads enjoying biking, and for it to not be something that people see as this like terrifyingly scary, you're going to die on that bike, mate, dangerous hobby, because it really isn't. It is a fun hobby. The social aspect of it is fantastic. It's brilliant for your mental health. There's a load of benefits to going out and enjoying a bike. And I feel like because of all these licensing restrictions and this perceived, I say perceived, statistically, yes, it's dangerous. But this like repeated nature that biking is dangerous, I feel like there's something out there that can be done to hopefully get more people out on bikes. So again, as I've done with every point in this news article, back to you guys. What do you think to the current What do you guys think to the current licensing system? Do you think it needs overhauling? Are you currently stuck on an A2 license waiting years to get onto your full A license despite having more experience than probably myself, who's only been riding for 2 years or so? So do you think it's worthwhile streamlining it? Let me know in the comments below. And anyway, that is everything. That is me wrapped up on this weekly news roundup. I'll see you next week. If you've liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Check out my other videos. I'll pop a couple on the screen somewhere now. And hit that subscribe button. I love seeing this channel grow. And hopefully I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.